is being recorded.
Welcome and thank you for joining us today for the meeting of the New York City Health and Hospital Executive Committee meeting. Today's meeting is officially called to order. For the record, please note Erin Kelly is representing Deputy Mayor Ann Williams Isom. Dr. Shadi Shamani is representing Dr. Ashwin Vasan. Karen St. Hilaire is representing Molly Wasso Park, all in voting capacity. Thank you very much to the three of you for being here for the purpose of the meeting. Next on the agenda is the adoption of the minutes for the Board of Directors meeting held on June 27th, 2024. Are there any questions, comments, or suggested changes? If there are none, may I hear a motion to accept these minutes?
So moved.
Great. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Very good. The motion carries and the minutes are adopted. During the executive session, the executive committee received and approved oral and written governing body submission from New York City Health and Hospital Metropolitan. The executive committee also received and approved semi-annual governing body 2023 performance improvement and evaluation plan written submission from New York City Health and Hospital Segunda Ruiz Belvis. The executive committee also received and approved semi-annual governing body report written submission from New York City Health and Hospitals Woodhall for the period of October 2022 through March 2023, and Bellevue for the period of April 2023 through September 2023. I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome Dr. Wright. Well known in his field, we're thrilled to have you. This is obviously in your role as Deputy Commissioner of the Division of Mental Hygiene. It's one of the areas we work most closely together, health and hospitals and your department. And so we're thrilled that you're here, and we appreciate you coming to the meeting and look forward to continuing to work with you. Okay, I also want to thank Dr. Marthone and Jackie Rowe Adams for attending the Marjorie Matthews Volunteer Recognition event. It's a very nice event, and not just so that you could see Jackie dancing, but I was very happy to be there, and I hope people will go. It's a very feel-good, the combination of having all of the cabs and being out at Kohler and all of the hospitals together and a barbecue and an ice cream truck. It was a really wonderful event. And then I want to thank you, Frida, Sally, and Dr. Marthone for visiting the Roosevelt Hospital in a show van on July 17th. Sally, would you like to provide some feedback?
Sure. It was a wonderful experience. Ted met us. It was funny because he pointed out that it was the lowest activity day they ever had. But we did go on a tour of the facility. We saw the medical exam area where people are checked up when they first arrived. We saw the circuit that they go through as they get counseled and have their workups done, and it was just extremely impressive. We even saw a space that they don't like to use and hope not to use, which has tens, if not hundreds, of cots in case there just is an overflow capacity. They have overflow capacity. All in all, it was a really terrific experience. I can't believe the tens of thousands of people that have gone through there.
I think he said 150,000.
I thought it was 169, but it could have been 150,000. It was an enormous number that have gone through. And then we went to the show van and met all the staff on the show van. And he told us about the people who have grown accustomed to seeing them there and come frequently to get checked up. Wound care is their biggest issue that they have to deal with, but they've become like a neighborhood fixture. And I don't remember the numbers, maybe you do, Frida, but they see a significant number of patients there just with the mobile van. That was also very impressive.
That's wonderful.
Frida took pictures if anybody
Yes, anybody wants
Okay,
pictures.
well, maybe we can put them on the web
website,
page.
yes.
It's in today's president's report, but one of the successful outcomes of the Welcoming Center has been that we've had 2 cases of measles. People incorrectly think that that's because people brought measles here. In fact, that is not the case. They had not traveled in 30 days, but they acquired measles here. And the reason that it is not an epidemic and that it is 2 isolated cases is because, as you saw, they immunize everybody if there's no evidence that they have had an MMR recently. So I view, 2 unrelated cases, given the numbers of people we've seen, as a tremendous success.
They isolated the floor where the
Yes.
individuals are. The individuals had to stay in isolation for, I don't
Right.
remember how long, but a significant period of
But
time.
I think the point, Sally, that was really remarkable was because we had, it could have been hundreds of people isolated.
Yes.
But we was down to 20, 25
Right.
because we had records of having immunized them.
Exactly,
and-
right. So they're getting it
From the
again. They're
arrival
not
center.
bringing it.
Right.
They're getting it because they're not immunized.
Right.
But we've immunized them. And we don't get everyone in part because there is some delay between when you get the shot and when you develop sufficient immunity to prevent you from getting a case. But in general, I thought that was quite a good success, and it was also the cases themselves were a great positive working relationship with DOH-MH. Dr. Quinn in particular helped us very much in managing those cases.
It's like the most communicable disease.
I think chickenpox is I always thought it was chickenpox, but I'll defer to my DOH-MH. I always heard that if one child on a bus had chickenpox, every child had chickenpox.
Oh, I think we
But
heard
maybe
9 out of
that's
10
just
for
a
measles.
tale. This is all, of course, before the era
I don't know
of
which one's
vaccination.
worse.
It's very transmissible. We
Yes.
can
They're all
leave it at that. All right, very good. Since we began the process of approving contracts prior to Vendex approval, there are 11 items on today's agenda requiring Vendex approval. 9 have that approval. We'll continue to notify the board as outstanding Vendex approvals are received. Now I would like to go to the resolution and ask each committee chair to please read the resolution. Frida, I think you have the first one.
Yep, I think I might have all of them, actually. The first one is authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, to execute agreements with each of the vendors, Proprio LS LLC, AMN Healthcare Language Services, Inc., AMN, Birch Language Solutions, LLC, Language Line Services, Inc., doing business as Language Line Solutions, Geneva Worldwide, Inc., American Sign Language, Inc., ALSI, Sign Talk, LLC, and Alta Language Services, Inc., for the provision of medical interpretation services on behalf of the system for an initial period of 3 years and 2 one-year renewal options, exercisable at the discretion of the system, for an amount not to exceed $126,371,490 over the potential 5-year term. And modifying the prior board resolution resolved January 2019, which was for OPI services by increasing the not-to-exceed amount from $48,241,516 to $53 million, and authorizing previous spend for video remote interpreting services with Language Line Solutions, Inc., Cyracom LLC, and Stratus Video LLC, doing business as AMN Language Services, for the period of June 1, 2019 through May 30, 2024, in an amount not to exceed $15 million. This is being presented directly to the board today. And I'll turn it over to Ivelisse for presentation.
Good afternoon, everyone. So we are here for board consideration, authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation to execute agreements for medical interpretation services. By way of background, we have several requirements under various laws and regulatory bodies that actually afford us the responsibility to provide the provision of language services. Some of these include the Affordable Care Act, Section 1557, the National Class Standards, HIPAA, Americans with Disabilities Act, the Civil Rights Act, and Joint Commission. Currently, we have 4 interpretation services that are offered, as well to assess and train multilingual staff for interpretation and communicating with patients in a language other than English. These include over-the-phone interpretation, video remote interpretation, or VRI, on-site interpretation of spoken languages, which we refer to as OSI, on-site interpretation for sign language, referred to as well as OSI, and language proficiency and interpreter skills assessment. By way of background, in fiscal year 2024, the system utilized over 35.5 million minutes of interpretation at a cost of $24,070,760 for our limited English proficiency patients. This is an increase of 21% from FY23, with an average growth of 24% each year over the past 3 years. In terms of the projection of growth in services, this increase is due to a combination of, we have an significant increase in demand. So the increase in the number of requests from Spanish from 20 to 2024. In 2020, we had 794,802 requests, totaling 6,584,587. When we fast forward to 2024, we see that number increased to 1,695,884 requests, totaling a monetary amount of $14,997,214.47. 113% increase in requests, and this is also 128% increase in costs. The significant increases across all other languages, as well as French and Haitian Creole. It's also attributed to the increasing use of VRI, or video remote interpretation, as an interpretation option. When we look at over-the-phone interpretation, the increase between 2019 and 2024 was 62%. 9,728,277.69 in 2019, compared to 15,719,719.15 in 2024. There was a VRI increase, or video remote interpretation,
Salute.
bless you, increase between 2019 and 2024, and this was 2,147%. In monetary amounts, we had $305,562,085 in 2019. When we compare that to the 2024 expenditures, that amounts to $6,865,909.92. We also had additional on-demand interpretation equipment available at facilities. We had heightened staff awareness due to increased staff training. Patients were educated as to the right to access interpreter services. And we've also had an increase in telehealth appointments, which has resulted in an increase in video remote interpretation usage. Projected growth in services. So we have put in place methods to offset the overall cost for the system. That includes medical interpreter skills training, where we train staff who speak a language other than English to assist in interpretation system-wide. The assessment of multilingual staff, Medicaid reimbursement. So New York State reimburses at $11 for interpretations that last from 8 to 22 minutes, and $22 for interpretations that are over 23 minutes. We've also had reduced cost per minute for over-the-phone interpretation, as well as video remote interpretation. In this new contract, we built in efficiencies. We've negotiated better contracts. So, for example, pricing for VRI and OPI will be much closer than current contracts. Bless you. Awarded vendors for OPI and VRI will be required to provide equipment at no cost to the system. In the previous contract, we did pay for the VRI equipment. We also have allowed for a centralized invoicing process. This will allow streamlined process by which to improve monitoring on the use of versus spend for all scopes. So we will be centralizing the invoicing system. So the ODI office will be monitoring all expenses. We also have staff within ODEI, Diversity and Inclusion Language Access Team, which will be reviewing all vendor invoices for potential errors, patterns, and tracking spend. The majority of spend will be for over-the-phone interpretation, as well as video remote interpretation services, which are the primary methods of interpretations for facility staff. The RFP criteria, the overview of procurement. So the timeline was in November, RFP criteria. So the minimum criteria for over-the-phone interpretation as well as video remote interpretation was 10 plus years of providing medical over the phone and or VRI, provide at least 250 languages and dialects with high-level languages available 24 hours, 7 days a week for over-the-phone interpretation, provide at least 35 languages and dialects with Spanish and American Sign Language, 24 hours, 7 days a week via video remote interpretation. Vendors for over-the-phone interpretation as well as video remote interpretation must have submitted proposals for both, as the same vendor will be selected. The provision of automated system for calls for over-the-phone interpretations. They must have 3 or more staff working on over-the-phone interpretation or video remote interpretations accounts, including a designated liaison for New York City Health and Hospitals as a primary. We also put in the request, 1 or more staff members based in New York City. They must be able to provide an online portal for relevant staff, provide equipment to staff to access over-the-phone interpretation or video remote interpretation at no additional cost, and the minimum annual revenue of $40 million in the last year. The evaluation committee was an multidisciplinary committee consisting of representation from the Office Diversity and Inclusion. We had clinical and non-clinical representation. Facility representation included Jacobi Medical Center. We also had EITS, the ambulatory care, as well as Bellevue as part of the evaluation committee. For the over-the-phone interpretation, on-site interpretation spoken and signed minimum criteria was 10 years providing medical on-site interpretation, the provision of at least New York City Health and Hospitals' top 13 languages spoken, the provision of American Sign Language and other sign languages, be able to provide consecutive and simultaneous interpretation, and have a minimal annual revenue of $2 million in the last year. For the training assessments, the minimum criteria was 10 plus years of administering language trainings, language proficiency assessments, and or medical skills trainings and assessments. They also have scoring tests or assessments with human testers and raters who have been trained by said vendor with a minimum annual revenue of $2 million in the last year. The substantive criteria was based on 35% organizational capacity, 15% on languages offered, 25% on program form, 15% on cost, and 10% on MWBE for MWBE status year. The overview of procurement. On November 14th of 2023, the CRC approved an application to issue the RFP. On January 10th of 2024, the RFP was posted on the city record. On January 10th, the RFP was also sent directly to the vendor list. On January 17th of 2024, the pre-proposal conference call was held, which was attended by 24 vendors. On February 2nd of 2024, the proposal deadline, we received 18 proposals. On February 29th, the evaluation committee completed the scoring with 8 vendors being selected. For scope of service 1, which is over-the-phone interpretation as well as video remote interpretation, Propio and AMN were selected as the primary and secondary vendors. For scope of service 2, which is for on-site interpretation spoken, we had Birch Language Solutions, Language Line Solutions, and Geneva Worldwide as the selections. Scope of service 3, for on-site interpreter for sign language, we had American Sign Language Inc., ASLI, and SignTalk selected. And scope of service 4, we had ALTA for testing and assessments. On April 16th of 2024, we received approval from the CRC. In terms of vendor performance, all the incumbent vendors were satisfactory in terms of performance and overall quality rating as satisfactory. In terms of the vendor diversity analysis, in analyzing the scope of work being procured, the vendor diversity team analyzed the prior agreements, discussed each scope of work with the vendors as well as the business owners. It was then determined that the pattern and practice of the vendor pool was 100% self-performance of the services through its own staff and for all clients. Therefore, there were no opportunities found for typical subcontracted work such as temporary staffing. One of the awarded vendors is an MWBE, as being awarded a contract for OSI, Birch Language Solutions, a New York City, New York State certified Asian male WBE. So our approval request is the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is seeking approval to award a contract to multiple vendors for each of the 4 different scopes of services to provide interpretation services at a not to exceed amount of $126,371,490 with an anticipated contract start date of October 1st of 2024 with a 3-year contract with 2 one-year options with a 1-year check-in with the board. Amend the prior board resolution resolved January of 2019, which was for similar services by increasing the not to exceed amount from $48,241,516 to $53 million. Also authorizing previous spend for video remote interpreting services with Language Line Solutions, Inc., Seracom LLC, and Stratus Video LLC doing business as AMN Language Services for the period of June 1st, 2019 through May 30th, 2024 in an amount not to exceed $15 million. Prior approval for VRI did not meet the board approval threshold. I, the Vice President, Chief Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer, will be responsible for the administration of the proposed agreements and shall report to the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation Board of Directors on the progress of these agreements, including the amount spent approximately 1 year after such contracts begin their operations.
Okay, well, thank you for the great presentation. Just want to say that usually the role of management is to hold down expenses. And this is a little bit different because we've made a concerted effort to encourage use of interpreters wherever possible, to not have clinicians attempt using broken English or non-certified interpreters, family members, practices that were once considered okay, we do not consider okay. We want to provide a qualified interpreter whenever needed. And with our explosive increase in the use of virtual services, often video where comes at a higher cost, with our welcoming New Yorkers, many of whom speak languages other than Spanish, which are harder to obtain and therefore a little bit more costly. We have had increases in this cost, but we're not at all defensive about it. In fact, we're proud of it. We're proud of the idea. We do not cap interpretation services, and we will continue to provide it whenever it's needed. It is, and I think this is in the spirit of Ivelys's commitment to come back in a year, because we've had such an explosive growth. It isn't easy for us to say at this moment whether we're at a new threshold whereby the contract will continue to increase at the cost of medical inflation, which is what is in front of you, or whether we'll continue to have year-to-year major increases. If we should turn out to have major increases year to year, then when Ivelys comes back, we'll ask the board to increase the not-to-exceed amount for the contract. But again, we're very proud of our commitment to provide as much interpreter service as possible.
Very good question. On the VRI, what was the cost before this contract and what did you negotiate it down to?
So the video remote interpretation, what we negotiated down to is that it will not cost more than our regular over-the-phone interpretation.
You're kidding. That's terrific.
It's close, it's 10 cents more, but
That's
it's very close.
terrific.
Okay.
It was considerably more before.
Yes,
Yes.
that is terrific. Congratulations.
In addition to that, in the prior contracts, we were actually paying for the equipment. Now it's built into the contract, so we will not be paying extra for equipment for video remote interpretation services.
Very good. Any other questions from the board? If not, then we're going to poll everyone individually. Frida Wang,
Yes.
Aaron Kelly,
Yes.
Karen St. Hilaire,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinero,
Yes.
Dr. Shadi Chamini,
Yes.
Dr. Wright, Anita Kawatra.
Yes.
Okay, and myself, yes, so we've approved it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,
Yep.
next one.
Yes.
Authorizing New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, to sign a one-year extension lease with Elmhurst Associates, Inc., owner, for approximately 5,304 square feet in the first floor and basement of the property known as 78-05 41st Avenue, Elmhurst, New York. The premises, which currently houses administrative staff of New York City Health and Hospitals Elmhurst, the facility, at a rental rate of $53.95 per square foot for a yearly rent of $286,151. This was presented to the Capital Committee on July 1, 2024, and approved to be brought forward to the board.
So yes, thank you we're here for consideration of extending the lease for 1 year. The space is located
Go ahead and
directly.
introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm Mike Milinick, Chief Operating Officer of Elmhurst Hospital. We're looking to extend the lease for 1 year. It's across the street from our main campus. Currently, it's occupied by our HR department and an ACT program, Assertive Community Treatment Program. With the opening of the Queens Boulevard site that we're leasing that was approved over a year ago by the board, we have an opportunity to consolidate some of our lease space and no longer need this space moving forward, but would like an extra year for work out the operational logistics of transferring these two departments back into the main campus.
I'm Deborah Morris. I'm the Senior Director for Real Estate and Land Use Planning. So the lease terms, Elmhurst will continue to occupy 5,304 square feet of a building located at 7803, 7805, and 7807 41st Avenue in Elmhurst, New York, 11373. This is a one-year lease, which will commence upon execution. The existing lease term will end on August 31st, 2024. It began in 2004 as a 10-year lease with 2 5-year option periods. The base rent for the one-year lease is fair market value, $53.95 per square foot, which is $23,846 a month. Rent during the last 5-year option, years 16 through 20, increased by 2.75% per year, but will not increase in this additional year. The total annual occupancy fee for the base rent over 1 year term will be $286,151. So, for board approval, I can read the resolution authorizing New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the system, to sign a 1-year extension lease with Elmhurst Associates, Inc., owner, for approximately 5,304 square feet in the first floor and basement of the property known as 7805 41st Avenue, Elmhurst, New York. The premises, which currently houses administrative staff of the New York City Health and Hospitals Elmhurst, the facility, at a rental rate of $53.95 per square foot for a yearly rent of $286,151.
Very good, thank you. Are there any questions from board members? Okay, then seeing none, again, we'll do individual votes. Frida Wang,
Yes.
Karen Kelly. Karen St. Hilaire. Sally Hernandez Pinheiro.
Yes.
Dr. Shadi Chamini.
Yes.
Dr. Wright.
Yes.
Anita Kawatra. And myself, yes. Oh, it passes. Okay.
Great.
Thank
The
you.
next
Thank
one.
you.
Thank you. Next one, authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, NYC Health and Hospitals, to execute a contract with Sweet Group of New York LLC, the contractor, to undertake a decanting of New York City Health and Hospitals North Central Bronx Hospital as part of Correctional Health Services, CHS, Outposted Therapeutic Housing Units, OTXHU, for a contract amount of $12,069,614 with a 10% project contingency of $1,206,961 to bring the total cost not to exceed $13,276,575. This was also presented to the Capital Committee on July 1st, 2024, and approved to bring forth to the full board.
Good afternoon, board members and Dr. Katz. I'm Manny Sayas from the Department of Facilities Development. I'm joined here with Oscar Gonzalez, one of our leaders, and Senior Vice President Patsy Yang from Correctional Health Services and the rest of her leadership team. Just going to walk you through a little bit of the background relative to this project. On March 4th, 2024, the mayor directed New York City Health and Hospitals to move forward with the construction of the Outposted Therapeutic Housing Units program, frequently referred by us as the OTXHU program, at Woodhall and at North Central Bronx. The North Central Bronx OTXHU will be located on the 13th floor partial, 14th, 15th, and 16th floor entirely, and the anticipated completion is 2027, pending timely finalization of our design. The first prerequisite phase is the renovation of our space on other floors at the hospital to accommodate the relocation of staff from the 13th and 14th floors. This phase would allow for hospital departments to move efficiently and occupy upgraded and updated spaces while allowing for the construction of OTXHU to commence. And with that, I'll hand it over to Oscar Gonzalez.
Thank you, Manny. Good afternoon. So the plans for this renovation and relocation were completed on April 8th of this year. The slide here shows you a table of the decanting plan. So just to run through it quickly, the 14th floor obtained the nursing administration and training department and patient relations. Those will be relocated to the 6th and 3rd floor respectively. On the 13th floor, you have EITS Imaging, Biomed, Metro Plus, and Hospital Police. They will be replaced, they'll be relocated to 13th floor C wing, first floor, and basement first wing respectively. Pediatrics admin is going from 6th floor to 4th floor, and physical therapy, occupational therapy from 4th floor to the 4th floor F wing. And final, last but not least, patient relations from 3rd floor to 6th floor. So essentially, all of this juggling of spaces is part of the phase one, the prerequisite of OTXHU. It entails about a total of about 20,000 square feet of space. Once this phase is complete, we're going to focus on phase two, which is the full renovation of the first floor, your ED, your CPAP, and lobby, etc. It's about 40,000 square feet. And then finally, the incorporation of the OTXHU program on the 16th, 15th, 14th, and half of 13th floor to total about 60,000 square feet of space. Next slide shows you the current state of the locations that are going to be relocated, and then the future state of what they will look like. So for quickly on procurement, 13 contractors attended our site tours on April 30th through May 2nd. We received 7 bids on June 12th, and we've determined that Sweet Group is the lowest responsive and responsible bidder as of June 20th. Contract amount is $12 million, a little bit slightly over $12 million. Sweet Group does have current work with us. They are working at Bellevue on the new patient care unit, Forensics 19 East, as a general contractor, and in Queens, in the end building, 4th floor, they're working on a renovation project at the behavioral health unit. Both projects have been performing at an excellent performance rating. And they have also been selected as the vendor to be awarded the Woodhall Labor and Delivery Project. The schedule for this particular contract is to begin on fall of this year and completed by spring of 2025. And Sweet Group has committed to a 30% utilization plan. And you will see the sub-consultants and contractors underneath in that table there. The next slide shows you the evaluation questionnaire, yields them as excellent. And the next slide shows you the project budget. Construction of slightly over 12 million, project contingency of 1.2 million to bring us to a total of $13.3 million. Full funding has been approved by OMB, and this funding has been fully supported by CHS, so it's a CHS capital budget, which is in turn part of OTXHU. And with that, we will take some questions.
I just wanted to know, for each of these phases, what's the approximate amount of time each one is going to take?
For this phase one of the relocation of all these particular services?
Phase 1, Phase 2, Phase 3, how long will each of them take?
Well, we have the timeline for right now, which is just from fall to spring. We haven't yet determined the timeline for the first floor. We're still working out the plans for phase
okay.
2, and we're still working on the designs for phase 3.
And the project itself, OTXHU, about how long will that take?
The full program?
Yes. I don't know. I'm still working on it. Okay.
Late 2027.
Current projection is still the end of 2027, Sally, but that is dependent on final design. We're still in that process.
Okay.
Bellevue is expected, is on track to still open by the spring of this coming spring, 25. I'm losing track of the years, but yeah.
That is our critical path, is getting design finalized.
Thank you.
So this contract is just for phase 1,
Correct.
and so that's just the renovation of the floors that we're going to move other space to. It's not actually for the
Correct. OTXHU is going to be housed in 13 through 16, but right now we have staff within those floors. We have to relocate that staff and create way to be able to build out and do the construction within those floors.
And the first floor renovation is,
Phase 2.
okay.
So that one we're trying to finalize as well.
Yeah, that would be very significant, but this phase is the movement, the swing space and renovation of spaces for the other programs, as well as some HVAC work, electrical, plumbing, IT work. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Any other further questions from board members? If not, then I'll poll us individually. Frida Wang,
Yes.
Aaron Kelly,
Yes.
Karen St. Hilaire,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinedo, Dr. Shadi Shamani,
Yes.
Dr. Jean Wright, Anita Kawatra,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well, so it's passed. Frida, you'll take us to the next one?
Yes, authorizing New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, the NYC Health and Hospitals, to execute a design-build contract with LF Driscoll Healthcare, the contractor, to undertake a renovation of the Women's Health, Labor, and Birthing Center at the New York City Health and Hospitals Kings County Hospital for a contract amount of $38,630,954 with a 10% project contingency of $3,863,095 to bring the total cost not to exceed $42,494,049. This was also presented to the Capital Committee on July 1, 2024, and
Thank you very much. The labor and delivery departments occupy roughly around 23,000 square feet on the 5th floor of the S building of New York City Health and Hospitals, Kings County. Renovations are needed to optimize the space for improved patient experience, redesign of the existing operating rooms to improve the layout for staff, creating additional nursing stations to accommodate necessary monitoring of staff, redesign and creation of additional recovery rooms to monitor patients, and an overall improvement to the space for workflow and additional other benefits. The chart here represents the births at Kings County by calendar year and by volume of births. And with that, I'll hand it over to Oscar Gonzalez to take us through the rest.
Thank you, Manny. So as a result, at Kings County, we are implementing a new labor and birth suite that is patient and family focused, that will improve the overall birthing experience. We're looking to modernize the existing operating rooms along with additional operating rooms that will size and accommodate the equipment and the workflow, upgrade L&D rooms to improve patient-oriented environment, new reception and nurses station, birthing showers to provide additional comfort, create new green space to provide support families during and after birthing, new recovery rooms, additional triage rooms, new birthing rooms, and ample space for patient comfort, and the design will have significant input from the CMO team and the L&D team at King's. The project will be completed in multiple phases to prevent disruption of current services. I do want to elaborate that this is also an expansion of the building itself, so we will actually have more square footage. So the original footprint is about 23,000 square feet. Once we're working closely with the design builder, we'll know how much additional square footage we'll have to the program, because this is, like I said, an expansion to the building itself. The next slide shows you the footprint of what the future will look like. So essentially, the top right-hand corner of the orange space is the additional expansion of the building itself. So this is being done through a design build. So it's a state-required two-step process between where we have to have an RFQ, request for qualifications, and an RFP, request for proposals. So as a minimum criteria for design build, we required the vendors to have 5 similar projects, all over $10 million, with healthcare and clinical project experience. They had to have experience working with the city or public owners, and they also had to commit to a WMBE utilization plan. So as the initial step or process of getting an RFQ, request for qualifications, the majority of the scoring criteria fell on the firm's experience and the staff experience, followed by the approach and methodology of how they do their projects and the commitment to the MWBE. Once the bridging documents or design criteria was developed, that was attached to the RFP, where we requested a proposal from each particular vendor. And we wanted to focus a little bit more on the price for this particular procurement, since it was such a large project. So you'll see the higher weighted score on the price there at 35%. And then really focusing on how they were going to develop the design and manage the overall program, followed by approach and methodology and other project type of experience. The evaluation committee is listed there, which was made up of OFD members, Kings County members, finance, and the Office of the Chief Medical Officer. Next slide shows you the overview of the procurement. So this was posted on City Record, and also we invited 26 vendors who we knew that had design build experience. 28 vendors attended our pre-proposal conference on January 26th. We did receive 11 statement of qualifications on February 12th, and the evaluation committee submitted the final scores and selected the top 5 vendors. At that point, we pivoted and released the RFP to those 5 vendors. We did walkthroughs on March 6th, and we received 4 proposals on March 8th. We did request that vendors present, give us presentations on the project and how they were expected to deliver. And we did a final round of Q&A with those particular vendors on May 2nd. And on May 17th, we had the final scores, which yielded L.F. Driscoll Healthcare as the best value for what we were trying to purchase here. The contract. So we're looking at a contract of $38.6 million. The contract is expected to begin on winter 2024. With a 3-year initial term and 2 one-year renewal options. The design builder will work closely with the system and facility clinical leadership to ensure the design meets the requirements of the program. Driscoll does have experience with these type of projects and on healthcare facilities. Not necessarily with Howland hospitals, but at other medical facilities throughout the country. 2 of them to note here are Richmond University Medical Center, where they did the emergency department and a cogen plant for $122 million. And at Brooklyn Hospital Center, downtown Brooklyn, they did the ED expansion for $28 million. Driscoll has committed to 30% utilization plan, and there's a list of all their subcontractors. Budget, as mentioned, for the design build, $38.6 million, with a contingency of $3.8 million. That brings us to a total of $42.5 million, which is well within our budget, which is pending OMB approval today at OMB. The design build proposed price we're going to continue to negotiate with the vendor. We're still talking to them every day, trying to hash out the scope and all those elements to try and drive down that cost. So the $42.5 million is a not to exceed value. It may actually come in a little bit reduced once we refine the scope a little bit more. We also want to acknowledge and take this moment to thank the Brooklyn Borough President, Reynoso, because he generously gave $15.6 million towards this project, and we were able to execute this procurement pretty fast to get it on the books. And with that, we will take any questions.
Any questions?
Quick,
Please, Sally.
about how many more patients do you think we'll be able to handle? Is the goal of this, because I know Elmhurst went through this a little bit, the goal more to increase the capacity for patients or to create a more state-of-the-art birthing facility?
It's to create a more state-of-the-art, to modernize, upgrade, to have everything to be more efficient for the staff and for the patients. So it might yield a higher count at the end of the day, but definitely we'll be able to operate better than we are today.
I mean, in general, Sally, as you know, births are not up in New York City. So
Right.
almost all of these renovations are meant to create much more positive experiences for pregnant people.
I just have a question on the contract, Oscar. Does the design build contract have a guaranteed maximum price, or is it you're just negotiating a price?
This is a lump sum contract. It's not a GMP.
Okay. So when you were saying you're still negotiating the price, you will sign a contract price
Yeah.
that's,
For either that value or a little bit less, depending on what additional things we find with the vendor, what we can refine with the vendor.
got it. And why, sometimes you use design build, sometimes you don't. Why did you choose design build for this contract?
So we've done design build in the past
Yep.
quite a bit, especially for infrastructure projects. We have the design build legislation did pass for New York City back in 2019, and we've been working for the last few years to really try and implement the program. You know, try and get contracts in place, RFQs, RFPs. And really looking to expand the opportunity to bring this and fold this into the clinical projects. A lot of the country does do clinical design build. It does create an opportunity to accelerate the projects and bring them down at a lower cost. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that, but it just creates the opportunity, and that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create the opportunity to be successful for some of these projects. This is I want to say either the third or the fourth clinical design build that we brought to the board. Woodhall was one, South Brooklyn was the other, Far Rockaway was the other.
Have any of those been completed yet, or?
They have not.
Not,
They are currently being kicked off. So we're executing contracts now, and just working with them to try and really start the designs, finish up the designs, and get early packages of construction in place.
Well, it's good to have the tool and look forward to seeing how it works out.
The infrastructure design build projects have definitely started, and some of them have finished. The one that's in flight right now is Harlem Boilers, and that started off really, really well.
Great, thank you.
Very good. Any other questions from the board? If not, I'll poll individual members. Frida Wang,
Yes?
Aaron Kelly,
Yes.
Karen St. Hilaire,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinedo,
Yes.
Dr. Shadi Shamani,
Yes.
Dr. Jean Wright, Anita Kawatra,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, one
Great.
more, Frida.
Great, thank you. Last one. Authorizing the New York City Health and Hospitals Corporation, NYC Health and Hospitals, to execute a contract with CDE Air Conditioning Co., Inc., the contractor, to undertake a boiler and building management system, BMS, upgrade project of NYC Health and Hospitals North Central Bronx Hospital for a contract amount of $8,999,000 with a 15% project contingency of $1,349,850 to bring the total cost not to exceed of $10,348,850. This was also presented to the Capital Committee on July 1, 2024, and brought forward for full board.
Well, good afternoon once again. I'm here with additional members of our OFD leadership team, CEO Chris Mastromano and CFO Ellen Barlis from our Northern Bronx leaders. And just a little bit of background on this particular project. North Central Bronx Hospital currently has 5 existing boilers that serve with steam for heating and sterilization services. One of the existing boilers previously was completely taken out of service for full refurbishment. Burners and controls for 4 of the 5 existing boilers are beyond their useful life, so this is desperately needed. The existing facility has minimum heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system controls that need centralized monitoring and really building implementation services. So our building management systems for operating and maintaining the mainly critical EMP systems. These systems allow us to be more efficient. They allow us to have more improved controls for temperatures and airflow, and it's a more modern way of running a building. So with that, I'll hand it over to Hiba Hadid, who is our design and construction lead for the Northern Bronx.
Thank you. Good afternoon. So we're gonna go over the construction scope and schedule. So the boiler, BMS upgrade scope of work. We're getting new burners, new controls for boilers 1, 2, 3, and 5. Complete refurbishment of boiler number 4. New boiler burners management system. A new building-wide management system for the existing and future mechanical equipment that are going at NCB. This includes air handling units, chillers, pumps, fans, variable air volumes. Boiler work will be phased to ensure minimally impacts to the existing steam supply. We're expecting to begin construction in the fall of 2024 through spring 2026 for a total duration of 18 months. The next slide shows an overview of the procurement. So on February 14th and 15th, we had the site tour with the bidders. 16 contractors attended. On March 14th, the bid due dates, all the bids were received. We received 8 bids. May 30th, determination of the lowest and bid was finalized, and CDE air conditioning company was selected based on the lowest responsible bidder. Next slide is the construction contract. The procurement was sourced via public bid. The contract amount is $8,999,000. CDE is an HVAC mechanical contractor. Their ratings on MOX included 4 excellent, 7 good, and 4 satisfactory. Again, we're expecting to begin construction this fall through spring 2026 for a total duration of 18 months. CDE has committed to a 35% MWBE subcontractor utilization plan presented below. Next slide shows the overall project budget. So again, $8.9 million for construction, project contingency of 15% of $1.3 million, bringing us to a total of $10,348,850. The funding for this project has been allocated and the CP has been approved with OMB. We have a higher than typical contingency due to the age of the building and any findings that we may encounter during construction. And with that, we're requesting your approval.
Thank you so much. Are there questions from the board about this contract?
Much needed.
It is much needed. Okay, then I'd like to poll individual members. Frida Wang,
Yes.
Aaron Kelly,
Yes.
Karen St. Hilaire,
Yes.
Sally Hernandez Pinero,
Yes.
Dr. Shadi Shamani,
Yes.
Dr. Jean Wright,
Yes.
Anita Quatra,
Yes.
and I vote yes as well. Okay, that takes us through
Thank you.
resolutions. Thanks to you, thank you. Now for the, Manny, stay at the desk for just a second. For the president's report, I just want to add an item that isn't on it, because as so often happens, so much goes on in health and hospitals. And while we have many MVPs, Manny is definitely one of them. And one of the reasons why was today he responded to a break in the cooling pipes at Bellevue, which then result in several parts of the building having to being too hot to function, especially for surgeries which require the appropriate temperature. Manny, as always, sprang to action. As always, he went himself, right, to the site to see what he could do to expedite the repair. Elective surgeries were canceled But it did not impact the ability of Bellevue to run. All critically ill patients are still being taken care of. Emergency room is not on diversion. What do you see as Manny brought in portable air conditioners to cool the area? What do you see, Manny, as the time to be able to resolve the situation?
So I was controlling my emotions because I got very good news while I was doing this presentation. We have our chillers back up and running. We're full systems. We're doing all of our diligency for making sure our controls are working. We're doing testing throughout the areas, make sure we got our airflows. Humidity and temperature controls are very important in the OR, so we're kind of working through that. We did think this morning that we were going to have to put the ambulatory care building just a little bit out until we can get the main building up and running, but it looks like we can control the cooling with those two main chillers as well. So all very positive news in a very difficult situation this morning.
Well, thank you,
Terrific.
Manny, and I can't, yeah,
And
Manny
still
deserves
made it
and
here.
I can't emphasize, our facilities, many of them are way past the usual age of a hospital building, and Manny and his team, with grit and determination and a lot of duct tape somehow keeps it all running. It's really quite amazing, Manny, and we're very grateful to you. Thank you.
It's very kind of you. Thank you.
We opened, I'm not going to read the report. I will, mention, the highlights. We're promoting our farmers market at several of our facilities. All of our hospitals made the U.S. News and World Report for best hospitals. The LGBTQ plus services at Judson were expanded with help from the mayor. We're using the Sim Center. Sim Center is another, thing that I think has been so transformative at health and hospitals, right? From the model that I learned under, which was see one, do one, teach one, to a model where people can actually rehearse on non-humans, everything from they do trauma recoveries with these amazing mannequins that allow surgery to actually happen and to simulate, and they sequential things happen. There's like a bleed over here and you have to do it. To this, which is very interesting and very much in Dr. Wright's world, which is, okay, well, you can also use a sim center to learn how to talk to a patient about buprenorphine, right? And to sort of rehearse, right, to make sure that you're doing it right. So I think we, like virtual care, we keep learning new ways to do things better. We were recognized as a 2024 Wellbeing First Champion for reducing stigma around physician mental health. Metro Plus, thank you, Sally. #1 for quality for the HIV Special Needs Plan. Sally, do you remember? I feel like I want to say there were like 60 plans. Does that sound right?
Oh, I don't know.
There are a lot of plans.
A lot.
And to be #1 is really amazing. Jacoby got their level 2 pediatric trauma center certification. Our hospital CEOs made the community hospital CEOs to know. We also had a number of people under patient safety experts to know. We opened a new radiology suite at Woodhall. Our Brooklyn hospital CEOs were on the Brooklyn Power List. We opened up a wellness room at Cumberland. We had a new mural at NCB. We talked before about the asylum seekers. We're still caring for 25,000 individuals, even as through the work of Karen's great department, they're taking over, enabling us to focus more on some of the health issues, but still at this moment, it's 25,000 people, and we also have the amazing that we've done 130,000 vaccinations at the arrival center, right? What could be, Shadi, better preventive medicine than 130,000 vaccinations? City budget was adopted, which we're very pleased about. Variety of state and federal issues are coming up. I already mentioned that how great the Marjorie Matthews celebration was. And I'm happy to answer any questions or take any suggestions that you have. Okay, very good. The committee reports were emailed to you and are in your electronic folders for your review and submission into the record. Are there any questions or comments about the reports? Very good. Is there any old or new business to come before this committee? Hearing none, the executive committee is adjourned. And again, thank you so much for making the special effort to get us a quorum. We really appreciate it.
This meeting is no longer being recorded.